You're sitting across from someone who loves you, and you feel yourself disappearing. Not dramatically, quietly. Your words soften at the edges, your laugh bends toward theirs, you're calculating, how much truth can this moment hold before the air changes? You've learned to read rooms the way sailors read wind. A shift in tone, a flicker of disapproval, and you're already adjusting your sails, already smaller. And somewhere underneath the performance, there's a question you don't ask aloud. What if the price of being loved is never being known? This isn't weakness. It's not insecurity or self-sabotage or a failure of confidence. It's the authenticity trade-off, a deeply intelligent survival mechanism women develop when the cost of being disliked feels unbearable. You learned early that truth has consequences, that certain opinions make you difficult, that standing alone feels like standing on the edge of exile. So you traded a little less of yourself for a little more safety, a little less voice for a little more belonging. And it worked until it didn't. This pattern didn't begin with you. It began in childhood rooms where love felt conditional, where being good meant being quiet, where your anger made adults uncomfortable, where your needs were too much or mistimed or inconvenient. Maybe your caregivers were inconsistent, present one day, distant the next. You learned to read their moods like weather patterns to adjust yourself to keep the sun out. Maybe you were praised for being easy. The helper, the peacemaker, the one who never caused problems. Or maybe the message was cultural, woven so deeply into girlhood you barely noticed it. Nice girls don't argue. Good women smooth things over. Likability is currency, and anger is bankruptcy. None of this is about blame. Your caregivers were likely doing their best with the tools they had. And the culture? It's been shaping women into smaller shapes for centuries. But here's what matters now. You learned that belonging required a performance. That love was something you earned by managing other people's comfort. That your worth was measured by how little space you took up. Your nervous system absorbed these lessons like a language. When you were young and someone's mood shifted, when disapproval rippled through the room, your amygdala registered it as threat. Not physical danger, but something your brain coded as equally urgent: social exclusion. Because for a child, belonging is survival. So your brain built shortcuts. It learned to detect microexpressions, tone shifts, the tightening of a mouth. It developed a hypervigilance so finely tuned you could feel tension before it was spoken. Your prefrontal cortex stepped in to regulate, to calculate, to adjust, to find the right words that would restore safety. And your body? Your body learned to stay on alert, to brace, to scan, to fawn, offering compliance and warmth and helpfulness as a shield against rejection. This isn't pathology, it's adaptation. Your nervous system did what nervous systems do. It kept you safe in the environment you were in. But the body doesn't always know when the environment has changed. Now, years later, the pattern runs quietly beneath your life. You might overfunction in relationships, anticipating needs before they're spoken, fixing problems that aren't yours, carrying emotional labor like a second job you never applied for. You might apologize reflexively for taking up space, for having needs, for existing in a way that might inconvenience someone. You might feel safer being needed than being wanted. Useful is predictable. Desire feels dangerous. You might struggle with joy. Happiness makes you visible. Visible feels vulnerable, so you keep yourself at a hum, pleasant, steady, never too bright. You might use calm as armor. People praise your composure, your grace under pressure. They don't see the effort it takes, the constant monitoring. The way peace is something you perform, not something you feel. You might carry boundary guilt like a stone. Every no feels like betrayal. Every limit feels like cruelty. You say yes to things that drain you because disappointing someone feels worse than betraying yourself. You might mistake productivity for worth. If you're useful enough, needed enough, indispensable enough, maybe then you're safe. Maybe then you belong. You might confuse anxiety with intuition. That tightness in your chest when you speak your mind, is it wisdom or just the old wiring? still convinced that truth is dangerous? You might feel loneliest in crowded rooms, surrounded by people who love the version of you they see, while the real you sits behind glass, watching. Here's what the trade costs. You become a stranger to yourself. You lose track of what you actually want because you've spent so long orienting to what others need. Your preferences blur. Your desires feel embarrassing or selfish or impossibly unclear. You feel closest to people when you're taking care of them, and most alone when there's nothing to fix. The life you've built is full, but it doesn't quite feel like yours. And here's the reframe. What saved you then constrains you now. The hypervigilance that kept you safe in childhood, it exhausts you in adulthood. The people-pleasing that earned you love, it prevents real intimacy now. You're not broken, you adapted brilliantly. But the armor you needed at 8 doesn't fit at 35. A. Witnessing, fixing. The first step isn't change, it's recognition. You don't need to fix this pattern before you're allowed to see it clearly. Start by noticing without judgment when you shrink, when you swallow truth, when you adjust yourself to match the room. And retire the phrase, "It wasn't that bad." If it shaped you, it mattered. You're allowed to grieve the ways you learned to disappear. B. Body first. Your nervous system is still braced for threat. Before you can change thought patterns, you need to signal safety to your body. Practice 1. Orienting, 30 seconds. Pause. Without moving your head, let your eyes trace the edges of the room. Notice colors, shapes, distances. This tells your amygdala, I'm here. I'm safe. I'm not in the past. Practice 2. Long exhale, 60 seconds. Breathe in for 4 counts. Breathe out for 6 or 8. The long exhale activates your vagus nerve, the biological brake on your stress response. Do this 3 times before a difficult conversation. Practice 3. Hand over heart, 90 seconds. Place your palm flat against your chest. Feel the warmth. Feel your heartbeat. Speak to yourself the way you'd speak to a frightened child. I'm here. You're safe. We're not in danger. C. Boundary scripts. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the architecture of self-respect. Here are 6 sentence starters. Use them exactly as written until they feel natural. For friends, I care about you, and I'm not available for this right now. I'm realizing I overcommitted. I need to step back from specific thing. For family, I understand that's how you see it. I see it differently. I'm not discussing this topic anymore. I'm happy to talk about something else. For work, I can do X by date or Y by sooner date, which works better. That's outside my bandwidth right now. Let me connect you with resource. For romance, I need time to think about what I actually want before I respond. I'm feeling emotion. I'm not asking you to fix it. I just need you to hear me. For yourself, I'm allowed to change my mind. Disappointing someone isn't the same as harming them. D. Language swap. Your words shape your reality. Small shifts in language create cracks in old patterns. Instead of, I can't make it, try, I'm not available this week. Can't implies lack of ability. Not available implies choice. Instead of, I'm sorry, but, try, I've decided. You don't need to apologize for decisions. Instead of, does that make sense? Try, what questions do you have? Stop asking permission for your own clarity. E. Inner child bridge. There's a version of you still carrying the belief that truth is dangerous. She needs to hear from the adult you've become. Speak to her directly. You didn't deserve to shrink yourself to be loved. You were just trying to feel safe, and you did the best you could. The people who couldn't hold your fullness, that was about their capacity, not your worth. You get to rest now. You get to take up space. You get to be whole. When this pattern begins to shift, life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes yours. Peace stops being something you perform and starts being something you feel, not as the absence of conflict, but as the presence of alignment. You notice that love without performance is quieter, less dramatic, more steady. It doesn't ask you to audition. You start to recognize the difference between people who love your usefulness and people who love your wholeness. You realize that belonging doesn't require agreeing, that you can care about someone and still hold a different truth. You discover that the women who threaten people most aren't the loud ones. They're the ones who stop negotiating their reality to make others comfortable. Nietzsche called them free spirits, people who refuse to live by borrowed values, who insist on thinking for themselves even when it isolates them. For women, this freedom is radical, because a woman who prioritizes truth over likability disrupts an ancient contract. She reminds others that the trade-off is optional, that you can survive being disliked, that integrity is worth more than approval, and that terrifies people who are still performing. You're sitting across from someone who loves you. This time, you don't disappear. Your words hold their shape. Your truth stays anchored. You're not calculating. You're present. And when the air changes, you notice it. You feel the old reflex rise, the urge to smooth, to adjust, to shrink. But you don't, because you've learned that peace isn't earned by making yourself smaller. It's kept by staying whole. And wholeness you're discovering isn't loud or dramatic or defiant. It's just the quiet courage to take up the space you're already in. If you only remember one thing, being disliked by the wrong people is a sign you're doing something right. What part of this felt like a door unlocking? I'd love to hear what resonated with you in the comments. And if this landed for you, maybe it'll land for someone else who needs it. Share it with a woman who's learning to stand alone. Until next time, take care of yourself. Not because you have to earn rest, but because you deserve it.